Okay, well, welcome to the Indigenous Entrepreneurs podcast. Today I have Nellis Kennedy-Howard with me, and she is the owner of Asdzą Consulting. And if I mispronounced that, please correct me, Nellis. But if we can just get started with you introducing yourself, and then we'll just get into the discussion today.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a great job with the pronunciation.
Thank
Asana
you.
Consulting, which Asana is the Navajo word for woman. So that's my tribe. Yeah, Nellis Kennedy-Howard, Unisha. My name is Nellis. I'm very grateful to be here and yeah, eager to dive in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I guess just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, definitely. So, in terms of a little bit about myself, I would say that after school, I ended up doing law school. So I'm also an attorney and certified mediator and a few other things. But after law school, I started working for a national Native American nonprofit organization up in northern Minnesota on the White Earth Reservation, and worked there for a number of years alongside Winona LaDuke, which I really enjoyed and loved. And it really kind of opened my eyes to a number of these injustices that occur on native lands in terms of extraction, fossil fuel development, and the lack of clean energy opportunities, environmental injustices in general. And so I worked there for a number of years. There was a funding crunch, and I ended up having to find new employment elsewhere. And I ended up at Sierra Club for a number of years, which I didn't expect, but it worked out really well in the sense that the role that I took at Sierra Club was primarily focused on working to transition off of coal, which my family's reservation, the Navajo Reservation, lots of coal development. So I worked for Sierra Club for a number of years. And when I was at Sierra Club, I ended up changing my role slightly. Well, actually, I changed my role in a big way to focus on equity, justice, inclusion types of work. It was around that time that I also not long thereafter that I had my first baby and decided to look for something new. And here's my confession that when I had my first baby, I stepped away from Sierra Club thinking that I would find employment elsewhere and just mix things up and do things a little bit differently. And instead of finding new employment, I accidentally started my own business. So that is my confession.
You know what's funny is that so many people that I've talked to started their business after they had, like, either when they were having their first child or like right after, which I find really interesting because some people would think that that would be a deterrent, but it's actually an inspiration, it seems, for a lot of people.
It is. For me, it was the flexibility of being self-employed, the flexibility of being able to spend time with my little one, my daughter. Her name's Mackenzie, and she's actually 4 years old now. She's going to be 5 in just a couple of weeks, actually. So she's going to be 5, and then I also have my son now, and he's 2. And the flexibility that having my own business offers is just it's hard to compete with because that family time is just so precious.
Definitely. So did when exactly did you start your business? After or before you had your first child?
After,
Okay.
yep. So my daughter was born in 2019, and it was in 2020 that I started to take on my own clients. And essentially, what happened is that when I left my previous employer, I had one person knock on my door and say, "Hey, could you do some consulting on this thing?" And I said, "Sure." And then I had another person knocking on my door, "Can you do that thing on consulting?" And this and that ended up being a full-time job. And so, so I accidentally started my own business.
So what types of consulting do you do?
It varies. Lots of different types of consulting, lots of leadership development, strategic planning, executive coaching, lots of justice, equity, inclusion, diversity types of work as well, lots of HR related support support those types of services in general. I'm kind of a unique in the sense that I have a unique background as both an attorney, as a mediator, and then also having had some campaign experience with an energy and environment related issues. So most of my clients are actually in the green sector, conservation sector. Um, and most of my clients are also nonprofit organizations, although I do also work with a number of businesses and foundations too.
So in terms of like business type, are you a sole proprietor or an LLC? And then are you running your business on or off tribal land?
Great question. So I started off as a sole prop and ended up working to an LLC probably a year, 2 years after getting started. And then this year is my first year as an S corp.
Cool. So, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and just to that last question around whether or not the business is run on or off tribal lands, it is based off of tribal lands, but because because I have the flexibility that I do like right now I'm actually calling in from northern Minnesota, which is great, visiting some of my wife's family there and spending some time with them. But also just with family and friends up here near the Leech Lake Reservation. So it varies, but it's based off reservation, and then I work with a number of Native groups as well.
So it's remote and mobile and you can work wherever, whenever. I think that's something, a model that I think a lot of native owned businesses could maybe benefit from looking into, like you don't necessarily need to be registered with your tribe or on your tribal land, but you can still do business there and have that flexibility.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, making sure that you're registered is important, but the flexibility of where you're actually work from, that is available to you. If you have a role similar to mine where much of your work happens virtually, and to be clear, I also do a lot of travel. So, I offer a lot of facilitation, team development, team planning, and a little bit of conflict resolution as well, and some other things. And so that requires some in-person time. So I travel a fair bit as well.
Um, yeah, I guess it does depend on like the type of business you're running for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so jumping back to like when you mentioned you started as a sole proprietor, then transitioned to an LLC, and now you're an S corp. What kind of led you to making those transitions for your business?
You know, when I first started out, I really thought that it was going to be a temporary thing. And so I stayed a sole proprietor for a bit. And then I started to realize I don't have to rush to become an LLC. There's no need to kind of rush in that direction. And so I sought to figure out a little bit more about the business that I wanted to create, the strategy that I was using before becoming an LLC. And when I did, it was great. It provides me with levels of assurance and protection that are incredibly important. And as I started to get further into the books of things, which is probably the least the least satisfying aspect of the work is managing the books. I started to learn from other professionals, and I work with a bookkeeping agency, which is incredibly helpful. And they helped shed some light on the benefits of being able to operate as an S corp as compared to an LLC. And I've been doing that for, gosh, 10 months now. It's already October. So, yeah.
Some do you mind talking about maybe what some of those benefits are being an S corp versus an LLC?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's all tax. For me, at least for me, I know there are lots of different types of benefits, but for me, the biggest benefit is taxes. So being a consultant, being and having my own business, paying for taxes directly, it's rough. It's really rough, and making sure that you're making those quarterly estimated payments. You don't stop doing that when you become an S corp, but because you are running a payroll for yourself, a lot of those taxes a lot of those taxes are held automatically for you. And it took me a bit to get used to, despite being an attorney. I'm not a business or corporate attorney, so it took me a bit to understand kind of the beast that is an S corp as compared to an LLC. But the tax benefits are the things that made the biggest difference, as well as just thinking about the ability to consider, hiring other employees if I choose to go that route. I'm not yet at that point. I work with a number of other folks, collaborators, who I contract with and tackle different types of strategies and projects that we're working on together. But I have not yet reached the point where I'm hiring others.
Awesome. So one thing that I know a lot of businesses struggle with and find intimidating is like definitely the financial part of running a business, whether it's like accounting, paying your taxes, figuring out the right structure for your business. What are some like challenges that you've faced as a small business owner and
Mm,
starting your business?
health insurance.
Oh, okay.
The cost of health insurance.
Mhm.
My wife has a severe form of lupus that puts her at increased risk for a number of things. She's also disabled, so she's unable to work, and that puts a big well, that's a big responsibility to carry for the family. And now that we're a family of four, and it's all the more important that that we're able to provide for the family. So there's that. But then the health insurance, finding health insurance that works for her and her needs, because she has so many specialists that she sees. Finding an insurance policy that is high quality, and that is available to folks that are not running a big operation or a big business, has been challenging. So we pay many thousands of dollars a month for health insurance alone, and that is an incredible feat. That is the biggest financial burden that exists in terms of having our own business. The bookkeeping has actually been incredibly helpful. I've enjoyed working with Amber Hillis Parker, who I think you've had on this show before. Amber's phenomenal. Amber is so wonderful. She's just great. And her team are fantastic. I can't say enough good things about them. They've been fantastic to help guide me and help make books easy for someone who doesn't know a lot about those things. So high confidence there.
Yeah, Amber's great. I did have her on this podcast two times before, and she's the one who referred me to you as a potential interview. And she's also she did a presentation for entrepreneur boot camp for Native American veterans that we had.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so she's really, really awesome. And I'm definitely glad that I met her because now one thing that we had a hard time with when our program first started was a lot of people were asking about CPAs and needing
Mm,
CPAs. And I was
hmm.
like, I didn't know that many, let alone any native CPAs. So learning about her and now knowing her and being able to refer people to her has been really awesome.
It's great. It's really great. I first met her through Native Women Lead, which is another great entity, which you're probably familiar with. But I first met her through that, and she's really helped in the sense of like making me think about business strategy, which is something I hadn't given a lot of thought. But she regularly asks me, "Where are you wanting to go with this business? What are you wanting to do with it?" And asking me big questions that, although I know how to answer them, it doesn't mean that I reserve the time to actually make myself do it. And so that is greatly appreciated.
Um, Kind of on that note, what are some goals that you have for your business going forward? I know some people like to just stay small, and that's fine. Other people have like goals of scaling. So what are you thinking of for your business, and goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the reasons why the business has worked so far is because it has happened so naturally. I say that I accidentally started my own business, and I really did accidentally start it. And it was really counterintuitive because I was the person who was always thinking to myself of like, I'm never starting my own business because I had seen so many people go down that path and it bite them in the tail. And so I just assumed that that would never happen to me because I'm not going to start my own business. And here I am, several years in now with my own business. So I think it depends on the opportunities that are presented to me. What I would really love to do is I would love to work with more Native folks. That's what I would really love to do. I work with a number of Native organizations now, and it's fantastic. I really love it. But I would actually like to start contracting with more Native folks. I already work with some, but getting to the point of where there's kind of like a cadre of Native folks that if I'm unable to offer something, that I can directly point others to them, and that we can think strategically about how to work together for something bigger. So, and when I say bigger, I mean having the bigger, best, a more efficient, impactful outcome of the work that we're offering to the communities that we're serving.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean, part of what our program is all about too is this like ecosystem building and creating those connections where it's just kind of a web of people who know each other and can refer each other to different people and resources. That's kind of what I do. I'm not the person that can really like do anything for you necessarily, but I can introduce you to like a person who can. So I'll,
Networking.
yeah, exactly. I don't, so I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit because I think something that you said earlier was important, about the health insurance
Mm,
and that kind of being a barrier and challenge. Because I know there's a few people we've talked to who they have like a job and then they have their business and but they feel like they can't leave their job because of health insurance and it's a concern for them and for their family. So I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit more about um how you've overcome that challenge. I know it
mm.
sounds like it's an expense, like a huge expense, but are you still kind of navigating that, or what are some solutions that you've encountered during this journey?
Great question. I would say that budgeting for it has been accounting for that in your operational costs. I know that it doesn't show that way, but thinking about the salary that I need as an S corp, and thinking about what are the costs that I have that I need to pay out of pocket, health insurance being one of them. So one is just budgeting for it. The thing that I have yet to find, and I actually think it's a symptom of a much larger problem, which is a broken healthcare system, and that is that the types of health insurance that are available to my family, although adequate and meet potentially the average family's needs, because my wife requires kind of a cohort, a team of health practitioners and specialists in order for her to have her health needs met. We've yet to find a really great policy that offers those things outside of an employer's policy. And I think that speaks more to healthcare challenges in the US in general. We are, oddly enough, we actually, in moments where and when we can. We also get our healthcare from Indian Health Service, which sometimes even Indian Health Service IHS can offer better services than some of the things that our insurance can actually offer. So we supplement where and when we can.
And that kind of goes back to like how you mentioned just accounting for it in your operational budget. So just, with finances, having a budget, first of all, having someone
Yes.
like Amber, who can advise on that type of thing. I assume that's been helpful too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Amber and her team have been fantastic to be able to break it down and to show me what my operating expenses are, where to pay attention, why, and ask questions, probing questions into why is this up and why is this down, that help me go, oh, why is that up and why is that down? She's also helping me understand the trends of the work that I offer, and like peaks of my season, I guess you could say, in the work year, and thinking about when things are going really well. There was a question that you asked about where would I like to go in the future. One of the things that I meant to say at that time is also that I would love to continue to not need advertising. So all of my work to date has been completely word of mouth, which I really love. I haven't had to take out, billboards or advertisements or anything like that. It's all been, hey, I did this thing with Nellis and her team, and they're phenomenal. You should check them out, and then kind of that. So it's I take great pride in that, because there's a level of confidence that people have in the work that I'm delivering. Um, People are trusting the work and that they want others to enjoy it as well. So if I can maintain that, that's definitely a business goal that I have.
And that just kind of like shows, your work kind of speaking for itself, just that word of mouth and people telling people about you. And again, it goes back to that like network, and the
Hmm.
importance of having a network and meeting different people, because you never know who might be able to make a referral for you or say, hey, I know this person that I worked with, or so and so told me about Nellis. You should reach out to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been very grateful for that. And whenever possible, I try to pass on the love as well, because I know that and Indian country is so small and is so big at the same time. But being able to share the things that we know that are working well for us, and creating a network of resources and a cadre of folks that you can call on for this thing or that thing or the other. Those types of connections that are things that I want to be sure to foster and put forward.
Yeah. Um, Kind of on that note, how has entrepreneurship impacted like your overall life and well-being? I know you mentioned before the flexibility,
Mm.
but I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more about some of the benefits, since we've talked about a few of the challenges. How has it benefited your life, and how do you see it benefiting like Indian country as a whole and
Mm-hmm.
Americans as a whole?
Yeah, great questions. I would say that and some of the benefits that I see is that I get to meet people like you. I get to meet lots of different people at lots of different organizations that are doing really cool things. And I get to ideate with them and brainstorm and help them become more impactful. I get to support mission driven organizations, which means that I get to choose who I work with, which is really nice. Being able to select who your clients are, and being able to say, this is a cause that I believe in and that I support. There's a high level of, I want to say pride, but it's actually like gratitude and humility of like being able to lay my head down at night knowing that I'm working to support people who are doing really cool stuff, and that I get to be a part of it and I get to learn from them. And that for me is a really big piece, because my clients, as much as I might help support them or help them grow in a particular area, they help me learn and they teach me things, new things every day. And then in terms of like of helping Indian country, there are lots of ways that I can think about it. I can think about the many ways that just, I mean, if you're I'm thinking about family just in general and the ways that the ways that they learn from me. But then I also think about the ways that I'm able to offer resources to folks or serve on boards of directors to bring a native voice in a place where it wouldn't otherwise exist, to be able to work with native groups directly. Yeah, there's lots of ways that I can think of that.
Yeah. What is like one of your favorite things about being an entrepreneur that you haven't already mentioned?
getting to see my kids on breaks. Because I work from home, it's fantastic. My son is 2 years old and my daughter is going to be 5 in just a couple of weeks, and this time goes by so quickly. It goes by so quickly. Um, so I would say that, and the ability to practice a bit of discipline around not being the person who does my best to try to control the work rather than the work control me,
Mm-hmm.
which I think can be a real challenge, particularly in mission-driven organizations or in advocacy roles, of where you get so caught up in the work that you lose yourself in the mix. And my wife does a good job of keeping my feet grounded in that sense.
Yeah, it sounds like it provides a good balance for you overall, being and freedom too, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's great. Like I said, we're in northern Minnesota right now, but I mean later um in a few weeks we're going to be in Wyoming, and in a few weeks we're going to be in Colorado. We're going to be visiting family and friends, and we're going to be working. I can work from those places so long as I have, trusted Wi-Fi and some other things like that. But there's a lot of flexibility that allows my family to have joy. I oftentimes say that I work really hard so that I can play really hard too.
Yeah, and your kids just travel with you too.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Awesome.
They're great. My daughter's all about it. We have a travel trailer in, so that makes it
Oh,
easy.
that's so cool.
But there's also nothing like a good hotel pool that gets my kids going
Yeah.
either.
I remember those days. It was always like, does the hotel have a pool? Have a
Yep,
pool, we're good.
yep, yep, yep. They're all about it.
Um, I just have a few more questions. One of them is, and you mentioned a few of them already, but any resources or people that have helped
Hmm.
you along your way that you would recommend to others, as valuable resources for entrepreneurs?
Great, great question. My mind immediately goes to a couple of different places. Of course, my mind goes to some web platforms in general. The first one that comes to mind is QuickBooks, which a lot of people know. It's not as daunting as I think as it could be. So there's QuickBooks. That's a paid option. If you can't do QuickBooks, Wave is also a really great platform for bookkeeping for those who are managing their own books. So Wave is a great resource as well. In addition to that, there's a free site called HubSpot, which helps you manage, because this is primarily applicable to folks that provide services. But in HubSpot, you can actually manage and kind of forecast your cash flow, which can sometimes be hard as a consultant. So thinking about that as well. So there's HubSpot, and then the last thing that I'll lift up is that well, a couple of different things. One is if you find a really great resource or an article or any type of tool, start to create for yourself your own resource library that you can reference, and you can actually code it so that you can search. And like I have my own library that I have hashtags, hashtag this, hashtag that, and then it has 300 documents or something, links in it right now. And if I'm looking for executive team resources, I just type in hashtag executive team, and all these articles kind of like start popping up, or videos. So something like that. And then last thing I'll say is templates. If you can get a good template for a contract or a scope of work or for an agreement or an addendum or whatever it might be, just having really good templates that you can consistently use and reuse, that will serve you in the long run.
Awesome. Those are all really good recommendations and very like practical as well, you know. I think sometimes people say like, "Oh, like you can go to this program or that program," but like having tools, you know, that like you can just add to your toolbox. I think that's very beneficial, especially for entrepreneurs who are just starting up and they're like, I don't know what to use or what to do. So thank you for sharing that, especially the library thing, the resource library. That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It comes in handy. I use it probably every day of looking for different types of resources that, oh, I read that thing that one time. Where is it at? And um, yeah, it's incredibly helpful.
Cool. My last question is that if someone is listening and they're interested in pursuing entrepreneurship, but they haven't taken the leap yet, what is a piece of advice that you'd give them, or words of wisdom or encouragement, even any hard truths that you'd like to share?
Great, great question. Um, I grew up in a very financially insecure home, not much unlike a lot of other native folks that are out there. Definitely like food stamp kid, and I think that I had cultivated and was conditioned with this fear of a scarcity mindset. That is a trait of white supremacy, right? Is this like idea of scarcity of resources, and that I can see how that has directly prohibited me and served as a challenge from thinking about more or what could be possible as compared to thinking about the securities or assurances that may exist. And so I wish that I had known sooner just how, I wish that I had been more confident sooner in my life to know that that if things didn't work out, I still have other ways. And so for anyone who may have those experiences of like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, um, I think knowing that you have a set of tools and resources and that you have a set of skills and experience that make you valuable, that even if it doesn't work, at least you tried and that those are still applicable elsewhere.
That's awesome. That's really good um, advice and words of wisdom. I do think a lot of times people have that scarcity mindset, you know, and it's just like an additional thing that especially Indigenous entrepreneurs have to get over in order to like start their business. But it's obvious that it can be done. You know, you can shift your
Hmm.
way of thinking. It just does take, I think, a little bit more work than it might for other people who haven't had to endure like that type of oppression, you know, and all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's possible. And part of my fear around starting my own business and being the person who has always said, "Oh, I'm never going to start my own business," is because I had seen even people in my family start businesses and it not go so well. But that has more to do with them ways that things could have been better managed than anything else. So making sure that you're on top of your management, on top of your books, on top of your cash flow. And if you can't do it, finding the people who can offer that support, then nothing will be a surprise for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and not being afraid to ask for help. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. When I first got started, I feel like there were a number of people that I just asked, "Hey, I don't know how to do this thing. Do you have a contract that I can use or that I can just start to draft from? Or I don't know what to charge for this thing that I'm going to be doing. What would you charge? Or what is the standard?" And of course, then trying to do some of my own market analysis and research of the cost of different types of services and um, what's average, and then also just being also acknowledging the disparities in compensation for native folks, as compared to white folks. One of the things that I have on my invoices and on my contracts is how Native women have to work 22 months to make what white men make in a year. And so just thinking about that and how are you factoring that in as well, making sure that you are getting compensated for your value and for what you are providing.
Yeah, that's really important too. I think a lot of times, especially like I've noticed some Native entrepreneurs undersell themselves.
Yes. And one person, I remember thinking, oh, I couldn't charge that. I couldn't do that. And I remember them saying, okay, but if you charge less, then someone's going to base their price off of yours, and then they're going to charge less because of it as well. So it's not like I'm just doing it for myself. It's because I'm then setting a standard for others as well.
And I mean, you know what you're worth, you know how much time you put into the projects. And I know that's a lot not talked about a lot. And there are some organizations who take the time to like go over that type of stuff with their entrepreneurs, like that help um people come up with a fair price, because a lot of
Yep.
times they're not taking into account the time, the sweat equity, the expenses. Like they're just thinking like, oh, I think it's worth about this much. But then when you break it down, it like comes out to like $5 an hour or something like that. So
Yeah. And also thinking about the taxes, because as running your own business, you have to be mindful of the amount that you're going to be paying in taxes, and then of course the health insurance costs and all of those things. So doing right by yourself. And another thing that I think that sometimes folks forget to account for is lost opportunities as well. So if you're committing to one body of work with a particular group, or if you're committing to provide a service or a product to someone, what are you not able to do because you're working on that?
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time and for answering my questions. I'm going to link the different resources that you mentioned in the description. But if there's a way that people listening, if they want to get in contact with you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Absolutely. Yeah, email would be the best. It's Nellis, KH, at gmail.com. So NELLISKH@gmail.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can check me out there too.
Awesome. And I'll link your LinkedIn
Great.
to the
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully this is the first of like many future conversations.
I would love that. And if any of the folks out there watching or listening, if you found something particularly helpful, or if you're kind of interested in learning more, don't hesitate to reach out. I want to hear. I want to hear and learn from your experience as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. It's great speaking with you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.